Have you ever thought about how the energy we carry affects the world around us? In Buddhist philosophy, everything is connected. Our thoughts, emotions, and actions, they all ripple out. They influence not only ourselves but also others. Now, imagine if there was a simple, powerful way to transform this energy. A way to heal not just yourself, but everyone you interact with. Through rituals rooted in intention and mindfulness, we can release emotional baggage. This creates profound change, both in our lives and in the lives of those we touch. Let's explore how this small act of letting go can ripple out into the world, bringing healing for all. The power of intention. In Buddhist philosophy, the concept of energy is fundamental. It's believed that everything in the universe is made up of energy, constantly in motion. This energy influences everything it touches. It doesn't just exist in the physical world but also in the emotional and mental realms. The way we feel, think, and act sends ripples of energy out into the world. This creates a dynamic web of interconnectedness. Energy, in this sense, is not just a passive force but an active one. It flows constantly. Our thoughts and emotions are like magnets that attract specific types of energy. When we harbor negative emotions, anger, jealousy, resentment, these feelings vibrate at a certain frequency and attract more of the same. It's like setting off a chain reaction that shapes our interactions and experiences. On the other hand, when we cultivate positive thoughts, compassion, love, peace, we attract similar energies, creating a harmonious environment both within and around us. At the core of this belief lies the concept of intention. In Buddhism, intention is considered a powerful force that can transform our reality. What we think, feel, and desire sets the direction of our energy flow. If we act with the intention to harm or retaliate, our energy will reflect that. But if our intention is to heal, forgive, and let go, we create space for peace and balance. The power of intention goes beyond just personal development. It impacts the entire world around us. When we act with awareness of our intentions, we become more attuned to the natural flow of energy. Every action, no matter how small, sends out waves that ripple through our relationships, our communities, and even the world. This is why the practice of mindfulness, an integral part of Buddhism, is so essential. By becoming aware of our intentions, we can actively shape the energy that surrounds us. Now, it's not just about having positive thoughts. Intentions must be genuine and rooted in the right motivation. If you say, "I forgive," but hold on to resentment, your intention isn't truly aligned with healing. True intention requires a deep, honest desire to release negative energy and replace it with something constructive. It's about clearing the space within, letting go of old attachments, and allowing new, more beneficial energy to flow in. Black pepper, a symbol of transformation. Black pepper, often seen as a humble kitchen staple, has been revered for centuries across various cultures, not just for its flavor, but for its profound spiritual significance. Its use in rituals and sacred practices transcends its everyday culinary applications. Historically, black pepper has been associated with purification, protection, and the restoration of balance. Ancient civilizations recognized its power to ward off negative energy and clear spiritual blockages. This made it a key ingredient in their ritualistic practices. In many cultures, black pepper was seen as a tool for cleansing, physically and spiritually. It was believed to have the ability to absorb negative energy, transforming it into something positive. This powerful spice was often used in rites of passage, healing ceremonies, and even in the protection of sacred spaces. It was thought to act as a shield, keeping malevolent forces at bay while allowing only pure, positive energy to enter. In the context of Buddhist teachings, black pepper holds a symbolic role in the transmutation of energy. Just as Buddhism teaches the impermanence of all things, black pepper embodies this principle of transformation. It has the unique ability to absorb negativity and transform it into neutrality, allowing space for new, more harmonious energy to flow in. The act of using black pepper in a ritual, then, is not just about invoking protection. It's about shifting the energy within oneself and the surrounding environment, creating balance and harmony. In Buddhist philosophy, This mirrors the practice of letting go of attachments and harmful emotions. It's a process to achieve peace and clarity. At its core, black pepper represents the potential for change. Just as it starts as a small, humble seed, it transforms into a powerful force of protection and purification. The process of spiritual growth in Buddhism similarly begins with small, conscious efforts, and these efforts can lead to profound transformation. The energy we invest in rituals, much like the humble act of using black pepper, is capable of shifting the internal landscape. It allows us to transcend negative emotions and experiences. Reflecting on this, I find it fascinating how something as simple as a spice can carry such deep symbolic meaning in spiritual practices. It's a reminder that profound wisdom can be found in the most unexpected places. In our daily lives, we often overlook the power of small, seemingly insignificant things. Yet, when viewed through a spiritual lens, these everyday items can hold immense transformative potential. Whether it's a simple ingredient like black pepper, a ritualistic act, or a quiet moment of mindfulness, there's a subtle power at play, waiting to be harnessed for personal and spiritual growth. In a world where we often seek complex solutions to our problems, the use of black pepper in spiritual rituals invites us to reflect on the beauty and depth of simplicity. It encourages us to look inward, to recognize the potential for change and healing within ourselves, and to realize that transformation doesn't always require grand gestures. It can begin with the smallest, most humble actions. This symbolic connection between black pepper and spiritual transformation also serves as a metaphor for the Buddhist path itself. Just as we can transform the energy around us with intention, we can also transform our minds, letting go of the attachments, resentments, and negative emotions that weigh us down. The peppercorn becomes a symbol of that transformation, of releasing the old and inviting in the new. It reminds us that change is not always immediate, nor is it always visible, but the process is ongoing, and with each small step, we come closer to a more peaceful, balanced state of being. The ritual, a path to release and healing. In the context of Buddhist teachings, rituals serve as a powerful vehicle for transforming emotional and spiritual states. They are not mere actions performed mechanically but are imbued with deep intention and mindfulness. The following ritual, which involves releasing pain and seeking forgiveness, is deeply rooted in Buddhist philosophy, offering a practical tool for mental peace and emotional healing. Here, we explore the ritual in its entirety, from preparation to completion, emphasizing the importance of intention and the practice of letting go. Step 1. Preparation. Cultivating intention and mindfulness. The first step in any spiritual ritual is preparation. This phase is not just about setting up physical elements but about preparing the mind and heart. Before engaging in the ritual, one must clear away distractions and enter a state of mindfulness. This is essential, as mindfulness is the foundation of all Buddhist practices. It allows the practitioner to engage fully in the moment without the interference of external thoughts or emotions. Begin by finding a quiet space. It's important to choose a place where you can be alone and free from disturbances. This may be a corner of your home, a meditation room, or even a space outdoors where you feel connected to the earth. The space should be peaceful, a place where you can sit calmly and reflect. Once the space is prepared, sit comfortably and close your eyes. Begin to take deep, slow breaths. With each breath, allow your body to relax. Feel the tension in your muscles release. Your mind becomes still. The goal is to enter a state of serenity and openness. The next step is to set your intention for the ritual. In Buddhist practice, intention is everything. Intention shapes your actions, and it guides the energy you send into the world. As you sit in stillness, reflect on what you hope to release, whether it is anger, resentment, or pain caused by another. Be clear about what you want to let go of, but also be open to the possibility of healing and forgiveness. Hold the thought in your mind that this ritual is not about changing the past or the actions of others. Rather, it is about transforming the way you carry those past experiences. It is about releasing the emotional burden they carry and allowing yourself to heal. In Buddhist terms, this process is about the cultivation of compassion, not only for others but also for yourself. The first step is to simply acknowledge the pain without judgment, allowing yourself to sit with it in a non-reactive way. Step 2. Activating the ritual, releasing pain, visualizing the wrongdoer, and seeking forgiveness. Once you have entered a state of mindfulness and set your intention, it's time to begin the ritual itself. This phase involves a series of actions that help to externalize and transform the inner emotional state. Start by visualizing the person who has caused you pain or harm. This could be someone who has wronged you, hurt you, or left you with unresolved emotions. As you bring their image into your mind, allow yourself to feel the emotions associated with them, whether it's sadness, anger, frustration, or grief. Do not suppress these feelings, allow them to surface naturally, without judgment. In Buddhist practice, the recognition of suffering, your own or that of others, is the first step toward healing. Once the person is fully present in your mind, shift your focus to the idea of forgiveness. Forgiveness, as taught in Buddhism, is not about condoning harmful actions or allowing them to go unacknowledged. It is, rather, a recognition that clinging to the pain of the past only keeps you trapped in a cycle of suffering. By forgiving, you release yourself from that cycle and free your heart from resentment. Visualize yourself sending out a wave of compassion toward this person. This might seem difficult, but it's important to understand that forgiveness is not an act of weakness, it is an act of strength. You are not forgiving because the person deserves it but because you deserve peace. With each breath, imagine the negative energy associated with this person dissipating, transforming into something lighter, softer. The negative emotions, once heavy and burdensome, begin to loosen their grip on your heart. As you continue to breathe, focus on the concept of balance. Reflect on the impermanence of all things. Anger, resentment, and hurt are transient. They do not last forever. Just as the seasons change, so too will your emotional state. Holding onto anger only serves to perpetuate your suffering. But through forgiveness, you bring balance back into your life. Embrace the feeling of relief that comes with releasing the emotional weight. Step 3. Completion, releasing negative energy and embracing impermanence. The final step in the ritual is a symbolic act of releasing the negativity that has been accumulated. This action involves pouring water onto the earth, which serves as a powerful reminder of the impermanence of all things. Water, in many spiritual traditions, including Buddhism, is seen as a purifier. By pouring the water onto the earth, you symbolize the release of negative energy and its return to the natural world, where it can be transformed and transmuted. As you pour the water, visualize the pain, anger, or resentment flowing away with it, sinking into the earth where it can no longer harm you. Allow yourself to feel the relief that comes with this release. In Buddhist teachings, letting go is not about forgetting, it is about accepting that everything, including suffering, is impermanent. The act of pouring the water symbolizes that the negative emotions no longer have a hold on you and that you are free to move forward with a lighter heart. After pouring the water, take a few moments to sit in stillness. Reflect on the transformation that has occurred. This is not a one-time event but rather a practice of continuous letting go. Each time you feel negative emotions rising, you can return to this ritual and release them once again. By regularly practicing letting go, you cultivate the habit of non-attachment, which is central to Buddhist teachings. Personal reflection, the importance of letting go. The act of letting go is central to many spiritual practices. Particularly in Buddhism, it is a concept that permeates the teachings of the Buddha and resonates deeply within the framework of the Four Noble Truths. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is that suffering arises from attachment, whether to people, things, or emotions. When we hold on to grudges, anger, or past hurts, we keep ourselves bound in the cycle of suffering. Letting go is not just a means of freeing ourselves from emotional pain, it is a path to mental clarity and peace. Reflecting on my own experience with letting go, I have come to understand that holding on to grudges is like carrying a heavy burden on my back. It may not always be visible to others, but the weight is there. The more I cling to negative emotions, the heavier that burden becomes. On the other hand, when I practice forgiveness and release, I feel lighter, freer, and more at peace with myself. The peace that comes from letting go is not something external, it is an internal state of mind. It is a space where we can cultivate calm, clarity, and compassion. In the context of this ritual, the release of pain and negative energy through water is a potent reminder of the impermanence of our emotions. Just as water flows and returns to the earth, so too do our emotions rise and fall. We cannot control the circumstances that lead to pain, but we can control how long we hold onto it. Letting go does not mean we forget or condone the harm that was done, but it means we choose to no longer allow it to define us or control our future. Buddhist teachings emphasize the importance of living in the present moment and embracing the impermanence of all things. This is not to say that we should avoid emotions or experiences, but rather that we should allow them to pass through us without clinging. The water that we pour in the ritual is a reminder that everything, including our pain, will eventually fade. By acknowledging this impermanence and releasing the attachment to our suffering, we open ourselves up to greater peace and freedom. The story of Laura, a journey from skepticism to transformation. Sometimes, a personal story can reveal the power of letting go more vividly than abstract concepts ever could. Laura's story is one of transformation. It began with doubt and ended with profound insight. By looking at her experience with the ritual of releasing pain and seeking forgiveness, we can see how healing not only changes the individual, but also sets in motion balance and renewal in the world around us. Laura's initial skepticism. When Laura first heard about the ritual, she was highly skeptical. The idea of releasing pain through a symbolic act, pouring water into the earth, visualizing a wrongdoer, and seeking forgiveness, seemed frivolous. For years, Laura had carried emotional baggage, unresolved grief from a family betrayal, anger towards a former friend, and frustration with herself for not moving on from past wounds. She'd tried therapy, journaling, and talking with friends, but nothing truly relieved the weight she carried. At the time, Laura was deeply entrenched in her emotional turmoil. She often replayed hurtful events in her mind. She believed healing would only come through time or by confronting those who had wronged her. Anything that didn't involve direct confrontation or logical resolution felt like a waste of time. A ritual, especially one focused on emotions and intentions rather than concrete actions, felt superficial. Despite her doubts, Laura decided to give the ritual a try. She was open to new experiences, even if she didn't fully believe in their potential. After all, what harm was there in trying something that didn't require direct confrontation? Little did she know, her decision to go through the motions of the ritual would mark the beginning of a profound transformation. The first step, preparation. Moving from resistance to openness. The first part of the ritual was preparation. Laura knew she needed a quiet space, where she could be alone and undisturbed. She set up a simple area in her living room with a small bowl of water, a candle, and a piece of paper with a few notes written on it. These notes included names of those who had hurt her, things that still triggered her anger, and even her own feelings of guilt. As she sat down and began slowing her breath and focusing her mind, Laura still carried some hesitation. But as the minutes passed, her mind began to settle. She thought about the suffering she had carried for so long and recognized the burden it placed on her life. It was during this moment of stillness that Laura realized something. Her resistance to the ritual had been driven by the belief that releasing her pain would make her weaker or more vulnerable. But as she let her guard down, she saw something different. Her attachment to the pain was what kept her stuck in a perpetual state of weakness. Laura's initial resistance began to fade. A quiet sense of curiosity took its place. She began to truly engage with the ritual. She realized it wasn't about making the past disappear. It was about freeing herself from the emotional chains that had bound her. The second step, activating the ritual, letting go of pain. The next part of the ritual required Laura to visualize the people who had wronged her. She started with her former best friend, someone she hadn't spoken to in years, due to a betrayal that cut deep. As she thought about their past, Laura noticed the familiar pang of anger rise within her. She hadn't realized how much emotional energy had been consumed by thoughts of this person. Despite her logical understanding that forgiveness would benefit her more than holding onto resentment, the emotional pull was strong. However, As she worked through the visualization, something unexpected began to shift. Rather than focusing on the actions of her friend, Laura focused on how the anger she was holding was affecting her own life. She visualized the person who had hurt her. But this time, she saw them not as the enemy, but as a fellow human being. Someone who, like her, had flaws and moments of weakness. It was here that she began to feel a new kind of empathy. One that wasn't about justifying the betrayal, but understanding that the other person's actions weren't a reflection of her worth. As she continued, she imagined herself sending out waves of compassion, not only toward her former friend, but also toward herself. She realized that part of her suffering had been rooted in self-blame. She had punished herself for allowing the betrayal to affect her for so long. But in this moment of meditation, Laura saw that letting go of that self-blame was just as important as forgiving others. Healing started within her, and it began by offering herself the same compassion she was extending to those who had wronged her. In this pivotal moment, Laura's emotions began to shift. The grip that anger and resentment had on her heart loosened. She felt lighter, not because the past had changed, but because her relationship to it had transformed. The visualization helped her to release the negative energy tied to the betrayal. And with that release, the emotional weight lifted. The third step, completion, pouring the water and symbolizing release. The final step of the ritual involved pouring water onto the earth. This action, though simple in its outward form, was powerful in its symbolism. As she poured the water, Laura visualized the anger, the grief, and the resentment flowing out of her and into the earth. The earth, in this case, represented not just the physical world, but also the Buddhist concept of impermanence. Nothing is permanent, not our pain, not our suffering, and not our emotional wounds. Just as water flows into the earth, so too would her pain be absorbed and transformed. In the act of pouring the water, Laura felt as though she were releasing her attachment to the past and embracing the present. She wasn't forgiving out of obligation, but out of a genuine desire to free herself. By releasing the negative emotions into the earth, Laura symbolized her acceptance of impermanence. She acknowledged that healing wasn't about erasing the past, but about accepting that the pain would eventually fade, just as the water would be absorbed into the soil, and eventually evaporate into the air. After completing the ritual, Laura sat in silence for a few moments. She felt calm, but also deeply moved by the experience. It was as though a weight had been lifted, not only from her heart but from her entire being. She realized that, in the past, she had been holding onto the pain, not because it served her, but because she was afraid of letting go. She feared that by releasing it, she would somehow lose the memory of the injustice. But what she had learned was that releasing the pain didn't diminish the significance of what had happened. It simply allowed her to move forward. The lesson: healing begins with ourselves. In the days that followed the ritual, Laura experienced a shift. She found that she no longer thought about the betrayal as often. And when she did, it didn't carry the same emotional charge. She understood that healing truly began with herself. Not through confrontation, not through holding onto the past, but through letting go and trusting that the universe would restore balance in its own way. Laura learned an invaluable lesson. Healing is an internal process. We may not be able to change the circumstances that caused our pain, but we have the power to change how we respond to them. By releasing the pain, we allow ourselves the space to heal. And in doing so, we create the conditions for balance to be restored. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, has its own way of bringing things back into alignment. But it can only do so when we relinquish control and trust the flow of life. Through the ritual, Laura came to understand that forgiveness wasn't an act of kindness toward others, but an act of liberation for herself. As the Buddha teaches, attachment to suffering keeps us trapped in cycles of pain. But by releasing it, we free ourselves. This ritual was a tool, but the deeper work had been done within her heart. In letting go, she found peace. Laura's story serves as a powerful reminder. The journey to healing is not linear or quick, but it's one that starts with the intention to release and make space for something new. Once we let go of the emotional baggage we carry, we make room for peace, compassion, and ultimately, balance in our lives. Why this ritual works. The ritual of releasing emotional pain and seeking forgiveness is not just a symbolic act. It is grounded in the dynamics of energy, intention, and mindfulness. At its core, it involves conscious awareness of how we relate to our emotions and how they influence the world around us. The ritual invites us to release negative emotions and set an intention for balance and justice. This ultimately results in a shift of energy. Understanding how energy flows within and around us provides the foundation. This is why this practice can be so effective in promoting healing and transformation. Energy dynamics. The flow of emotions and intentions. Energy is a concept that transcends many spiritual traditions, including Buddhism. In this context, energy is not just a physical force. It is also an invisible current that connects all beings and phenomena. Every thought, emotion, action, and intention contributes to the flow of energy within us and extends outward into the world. In Buddhism, the notion of energy is linked to the understanding that everything is interconnected. Our actions and emotions reverberate through the universe. When we consciously release negative emotions, we create a shift in the energy that we carry. Emotions like anger, resentment, and fear are not just feelings that exist in isolation. They carry an energetic charge that affects our body, mind, and environment. Holding onto these emotions can create blockages in the energy flow. This leads to physical, mental, and emotional imbalance. Chronic resentment, for example, can manifest as stress or anxiety. And over time, this energy can affect our relationships, decision-making, and even our physical health. Releasing these emotions, whether through a ritual, meditation, or other mindful practices, allows us to clear these blockages. The ritual of pouring water onto the earth and letting go of resentment is a physical representation of this process. As the water flows from the vessel, it symbolizes the release of pent-up energy, energy that was once trapped in our hearts and minds. The act of releasing negative energy allows us to restore balance and open ourselves up to more positive, healing energy. The role of karma and the law of cause and effect. Karma is often misunderstood as a form of cosmic retribution. But in Buddhist teachings, karma is more accurately described as the law of cause and effect. Every action, word, or thought creates an imprint in the universe. This eventually ripples back to us. This doesn't mean karma is simply a transaction of good or bad deeds. It is an ongoing flow of energy that builds upon the intentions behind our actions. When we hold on to resentment, we are, in effect, continuing a cycle of negativity. Our thoughts and actions towards the person who has wronged us, whether consciously or unconsciously, are influenced by the anger or pain we carry. This perpetuates the karmic cycle of suffering, not just for the other person, but for ourselves. Holding onto these negative emotions keeps us tied to the past, reinforcing the belief that we cannot move forward unless we receive justice or an apology. This mindset keeps us stuck, creating a feedback loop where our actions and energy remain in a state of imbalance. However, when we consciously release these emotions, we break the cycle of negativity. By doing so, we are not just liberating ourselves from the emotional burden, we are also creating a new karmic path. In the ritual, the act of letting go of resentment, forgiving, and setting an intention for balance releases us from the negative karma tied to our emotions. We redirect our energy toward healing and restoring equilibrium. According to Buddhist teachings, this will eventually result in positive karmic consequences. We may not see immediate results, but the energy we send out will begin to shape our future in ways we may not even be aware of. This understanding of karma and the law of cause and effect is why the ritual works. It isn't simply about forgiving for the sake of forgiving. It's about changing the energy that we send into the world and redirecting it toward healing and balance. As we release negative emotions and intentions, we make space for positive karma to flow back to us. This positive energy may manifest in many different forms. It can show up as improved relationships, a greater sense of inner peace, or even external circumstances that reflect the balance we've created within ourselves. Example: the healing power of releasing resentment. To better understand how this process works, let's look at a hypothetical scenario. Imagine a person named John. He's been carrying resentment towards his colleague, David, for many years. Several years ago, David took credit for a project that John had worked on. Despite John's repeated efforts to address the situation, David never acknowledged the wrongdoing. Over time, John's anger grew. Every interaction with David left him feeling drained and frustrated. At first, John believed the only way to heal was through confrontation. He imagined that if David would only apologize, then he could let go of his anger. But as time passed, John began to realize that this desire for retribution wasn't helping him heal. The resentment was not only affecting his work environment, but also his personal life. He became so consumed by his anger that it started affecting his physical health. He developed chronic tension and insomnia. One day, John came across a teaching on karma and the law of cause and effect. He learned that the more he held onto resentment, the more negative karma he was creating for himself. He realized that while he couldn't control David's actions, he could control his own response. In that moment, John decided to take a different approach. He would release the resentment he had been carrying. John decided to engage in a ritual similar to the one we have discussed. He found a quiet space and focused on his breath. He visualized David and felt the anger rise within him. But instead of dwelling on the injustice, John made a conscious decision to release his grip on the resentment. He visualized sending out waves of forgiveness and compassion to David. Not because David deserved it, but because John deserved to be free of the emotional burden he had carried for so long. He then poured a glass of water onto the ground, symbolizing the release of his anger and pain. In the days and weeks that followed, John began to notice a shift. The tension he had carried for years slowly melted away. He felt lighter and more at ease in his interactions with others. His health improved, and he was able to sleep better. While his relationship with David didn't immediately change, John felt a sense of peace he had not experienced before. By releasing his resentment, he had freed himself from emotional suffering. He also opened the door to new possibilities for growth and healing. This example illustrates the profound impact that releasing negative emotions can have on our lives. By setting an intention for balance and healing, we align ourselves with the natural flow of energy and karma. The shift in energy that happens when we let go of resentment creates space for new, positive experiences to enter our lives. It's not about changing the other person. It's about changing our relationship to the situation, and, by extension, to ourselves. Conclusion. Why this ritual works. At the heart of this ritual is the understanding that energy is dynamic and ever-changing. By consciously releasing negative emotions and setting an intention for balance, we shift the energy within and around us. This practice aligns with the Buddhist concepts of karma and the law of cause and effect. These teachings show us that our actions and intentions create ripples in the world. By letting go of resentment, we not only break the cycle of suffering, but we also open the door to healing, peace, and positive transformation. The ritual works because it aligns our energy with the natural flow of life, inviting balance and harmony into our experience. Through the release of negative emotions, we become more attuned to the present moment, and more capable of moving forward with clarity and peace. Amplifying the ritual. When we approach the practice of releasing negative emotions and seeking forgiveness, we can amplify the ritual. This can be done by incorporating additional techniques that deepen its impact. Rituals, in the spiritual sense, are not merely symbolic acts. They are powerful practices that help us align our inner world with the broader universe. The more intentional and consistent we are in our practices, the more profound their effects can be. This applies to our emotional, mental, and even physical well-being. Just as energy flows through us and out into the world, the energy we direct toward our intentions can have a lasting and transformative effect. This energy impacts not only ourselves but also the environment around us. Additional techniques. Enhancing the ritual for deeper impact. One of the simplest ways to amplify the power of the ritual is through complementary practices. These techniques help to strengthen the energy of the ritual. They also deepen its emotional resonance, creating a more profound connection to our intentions. while the basic elements of the ritual are effective in their own right. Adding layers of symbolism and mindful actions can further heighten the experience. Lighting a white candle. The act of lighting a white candle is a traditional practice in many spiritual and religious rituals. It symbolizes purity, clarity, and the illumination of our minds and hearts. In the context of this ritual, lighting a white candle serves as a powerful visual and energetic signal. It signals that we are inviting peace and balance into our lives. The flame of the candle represents the light of awareness. It also represents the burning away of darkness, both literal and metaphorical. White candles have long been associated with spiritual cleansing and purification. They are often used in rituals aimed at clearing negative energies or thoughts. In Buddhism, the symbolism of light is deeply meaningful. The Buddha is often depicted surrounded by light, representing the clarity and wisdom that can dispel the darkness of ignorance and suffering. Lighting the candle before or after performing the ritual creates a sacred space. It allows us to focus on our intentions. It also serves as a reminder of our desire to release negativity and invite peace into our lives. To integrate the candle into the ritual, start by lighting it at the beginning of the process. As the candle's flame flickers, take a moment to focus on the purity of your intentions. Visualize the flame as a symbol of your intention to cleanse yourself of emotional pain and resentment. As you perform the ritual of releasing negative emotions, the presence of the candle reminds you that you are moving towards enlightenment, peace, and healing. This is true for yourself and for others involved. Repeating the ritual for 7 days. The repetition of the ritual over 7 days adds another layer of consistency and discipline to the practice. In many spiritual traditions, the number 7 holds significant meaning. It represents cycles of transformation and renewal. Repeating the ritual for 7 consecutive days helps to deepen the impact. It allows the process of letting go to unfold gradually and more completely. Repetition is crucial in any spiritual or healing practice. It allows the mind and body to integrate the experience fully. This makes it not just a one-time act but a sustained commitment to change. By repeating the ritual daily, you reinforce the message that healing is an ongoing process. Each day builds on the previous one. And over time, the emotional weight of resentment or pain begins to lighten. The ritual becomes less about the specific event and more about the shift in your internal state of being. Repetition also offers the opportunity to refine the practice. As the days go by, you may notice different layers of emotion or memories that surface. Each day, you might feel a little bit lighter, more open, or more at peace. You may even discover that as you release one layer of resentment or pain, another deeper layer emerges. This is a natural part of the healing process. By committing to perform the ritual for 7 days, you give yourself the time and space to confront and release these layers. This deepens your emotional cleansing and spiritual growth. Writing down intentions. Another powerful technique for amplifying the ritual is to write down your intentions. Writing is a method of externalizing internal thoughts and emotions. By putting our desires, hopes, and goals into words, we not only clarify our intentions but also reinforce them in the material world. Writing can serve as an anchor. It reminds us of our purpose and helps to keep us focused as we navigate the healing process. Before performing the ritual, take a moment to write down your intentions on a piece of paper. Be specific and clear about what you hope to release and what you wish to invite into your life. For example, you might write, "I release my resentment towards, name, and open myself to healing and forgiveness." By writing these intentions down, you create a tangible representation of your desire for change. Once the ritual is completed, you can choose to burn or bury the paper as a final step. This symbolizes the release of your intentions into the universe. In addition to writing down your immediate intentions, it may also be helpful to write about your deeper, long-term aspirations for peace and balance in your life. What emotional or mental patterns do you hope to break free from? What healing do you wish to experience? Writing allows you to expand your focus beyond the immediate act of releasing resentment. It grounds your practice in a larger context of personal transformation. Personal insight. The role of consistency in a clean environment. While these complementary techniques are essential for amplifying the ritual, one of the most powerful aspects of the practice is consistency. Consistency plays a crucial role in making lasting change, both in our internal world and in our external environment. Just as a garden requires regular care and attention to flourish, so too do our minds and hearts need consistent nurturing to maintain peace and balance. The power of consistency. In many ways, our emotional and mental states are shaped by patterns. Patterns of thought, patterns of behavior, patterns of emotional reaction. These patterns are reinforced by repetition, whether consciously or unconsciously. When we cultivate the habit of engaging in rituals, like the one described here, we create new patterns that support healing and growth. Consistency helps to break the cycle of negativity, a cycle that may have governed our reactions for years. It gradually shifts our energy towards a more peaceful and balanced state. A consistent practice also allows us to remain grounded in our intentions. Even when life presents challenges, it's easy to get caught up in the stresses of daily life, to lose sight of our deeper spiritual goals. However, by committing to the ritual over time, we train ourselves to return to a state of mindfulness and presence. No matter what external circumstances may arise, the ritual becomes a touchstone, a reminder that peace and healing are always available to us, if we are willing to practice. Cultivating a clean environment, mentally and physically. In addition to consistency, the cultivation of a clean and harmonious environment, both mentally and physically, plays a vital role in sustaining lasting peace. In Buddhism, the concept of purification is central to spiritual growth. Purification is not just about cleansing external impurities. It also involves purifying our minds and hearts of negative emotions, attachments, and desires. When we engage in rituals of emotional release, it's important to create an environment that supports the process. A cluttered or chaotic space can mirror the internal clutter and confusion we may feel, making it harder to focus on our intentions. Taking the time to tidy up the space where you perform the ritual can help create a sense of order and clarity. It is a reminder that we are making space, both physically and emotionally, for healing. Likewise, mentally purging negative thought patterns is essential for the ritual to be effective. If our minds are constantly filled with self-doubt, judgment, or criticism, the process of releasing resentment can feel like an uphill battle. Cultivating mindfulness and self-compassion through meditation or other practices can help to quiet the mental chatter, making it easier to focus on the ritual. When the mind is clear, the heart can more easily follow. By integrating consistency into the ritual and maintaining a clean environment, both internally and externally, you set the stage for lasting change. Peace becomes not just an occasional experience, but a state of being that you can carry with you every day. The ritual becomes a way of life, a process of ongoing purification and transformation, allowing you to release emotional baggage and step into a more balanced and peaceful existence. Conclusion. Incorporating complementary techniques into the ritual, such as lighting a white candle, repeating the ritual for 7 days, and writing down intentions, can significantly amplify its impact. These practices deepen the connection to our intentions and help to create a consistent and focused path toward healing and balance. Additionally, consistency and a clean environment, both mentally and physically, play a vital role in achieving lasting peace. Through these practices, we not only heal the wounds of the past, but also create space for new growth and transformation, ultimately living a more mindful, peaceful, and compassionate life. Deep dive into the Buddhist philosophy behind letting go. Letting go is one of the core tenets of Buddhist philosophy. It might seem simple in theory, but in practice, it is a deeply transformative process. Letting go requires more than just the willingness to release. It also requires the awareness to understand what needs to be released and why. In Buddhist teachings, attachment, especially to negative emotions, is the root cause of suffering. Understanding this truth is key to moving toward freedom and inner peace. Attachment and desire, the roots of suffering. At the heart of the Buddhist worldview is the understanding that human suffering arises from attachment and desire. This theme is central to the Four Noble Truths, which lay out the Buddhist path to liberation. These truths are: the truth of suffering, dukkha, life inherently involves suffering. This suffering can come in many forms: physical pain, emotional turmoil, or existential dissatisfaction. The truth of the cause of suffering, samudaya. Suffering arises from craving, tanha, desire, and attachment to things as they are. This includes attachment to our own emotions. The truth of the end of suffering, nirodha. Suffering can end when we let go of attachment and desire. This leads us to a state of nirvana, complete liberation. The truth of the path leading to the end of suffering, magga. This is the Eightfold Path. It is a guide for ethical and mental development that leads to the cessation of suffering. The second truth specifically focuses on attachment and its role in suffering. Attachment isn't just about material possessions or desires. It also extends to our emotional states, particularly negative ones like anger, fear, guilt, and resentment. These emotions arise from our desire for things to be different than they are. This creates internal conflict and external struggles with the world around us. Attachment to negative emotions, the vicious cycle. In Buddhism, attachment to negative emotions is especially harmful. It creates a self-perpetuating cycle of suffering. When we become attached to negative emotions, anger from a past event, resentment towards someone who wronged us, or sadness over lost opportunities, we let those emotions define us. We begin to live with them. We identify with them. They become an integral part of our self-concept. This attachment to negative emotions only feeds the suffering. For example, when someone wrongs us, we may feel anger. If left unchecked, that anger can grow into resentment, and eventually bitterness. Over time, this resentment festers, turning into hatred. Instead of letting go of the anger and moving forward, we keep reliving the moment of injustice. We nourish the feeling, creating a mental and emotional prison for ourselves. This isn't to say that negative emotions are inherently bad. Anger, grief, fear, these are natural responses to life's challenges. But attachment to these emotions is what causes harm. When we hold onto them too tightly, we prevent ourselves from healing and moving forward. That's why, in Buddhism, the practice of letting go is so important. It frees us from the suffering we've unknowingly chosen to hold onto. The Buddha's teachings on letting go. In Buddhist philosophy, letting go is not about suppressing emotions or ignoring pain. It's not about pretending that negative emotions don't exist or that they don't affect us. Letting go is about recognizing that we have the power to choose how we respond to these emotions. We get to decide whether we let them control us or release them when they no longer serve us. The concept of impermanence, anicca, is central to understanding why attachment leads to suffering. Everything in life is impermanent: emotions, experiences, relationships, and even our own bodies. Holding on to negative emotions is an attempt to resist this natural flow of change. We may hold on to anger or resentment because we want justice or retribution. We may cling to sadness because it is all we have left of something or someone we've lost. However, by holding on to these feelings, we deny ourselves the freedom that comes with accepting impermanence. Buddhism teaches that nothing lasts forever, neither positive nor negative experiences. Everything arises, exists for a time, and then passes away. By attaching ourselves to any emotion or experience, we create a false sense of permanence. This leads to suffering when that emotion or experience inevitably changes or disappears. Letting go, then, is not about erasing emotions. It is about acknowledging that emotions are transient, and learning to release them when their time has passed. Real-life application. Breaking free from attachment. To understand how the principle of letting go works in practice, consider the story of Sarah. She is a fictional character who, like many of us, became trapped in her attachment to past hurt and resentment. Sarah had been in a long-term relationship that ended painfully. Her partner had betrayed her trust, and as a result, she was left feeling heartbroken, angry, and betrayed. Over time, these emotions began to define her. She relived the moments of betrayal constantly, replaying conversations and scenarios in her mind. Every time she thought about her ex-partner, she felt a rush of anger, and this anger would quickly spiral into resentment. At first, Sarah thought she was justified in holding onto these feelings. After all, Her partner had hurt her deeply, and she felt that by harboring anger, she was somehow protecting herself from further pain. But as the years passed, Sarah realized that her anger was not protecting her, it was imprisoning her. The resentment made her bitter and suspicious of others. It colored her relationships with friends and family, making her distant and untrusting. One day, Sarah encountered a Buddhist meditation group, and something in their teachings resonated with her. She began to study the concepts of attachment and impermanence, particularly the idea that attachment to negative emotions only perpetuates suffering. She realized that her attachment to her anger and resentment was not allowing her to move forward in life. It was keeping her trapped in the past. And this emotional weight was preventing her from embracing a future filled with new possibilities. Sarah decided to embark on the journey of letting go. She began with meditation, focusing on observing her emotions without judgment. When feelings of anger or resentment arose, she practiced acknowledging them but without becoming attached to them. Over time, she began to see these emotions as temporary, like clouds passing through the sky. Slowly but surely, Sarah learned to release her attachment to the past, understanding that her pain did not define her. The process of letting go was not immediate, and it took months of practice and self-compassion. But as Sarah continued to meditate and reflect, she began to feel a sense of freedom. The resentment that once consumed her slowly dissipated, and in its place, she found a sense of inner peace. She realized that by letting go of her attachment to anger, she was not condoning her ex-partner's actions. She was simply freeing herself from the prison of emotional suffering. The transformative power of letting go. Sarah's story illustrates a powerful truth in Buddhist philosophy. Letting go of attachment is not about diminishing the significance of the emotions we experience. Rather, it is about recognizing that we are not our emotions, and that attachment to them only prolongs our suffering. In the Buddhist view, true freedom comes not from external circumstances changing but from our internal response to those circumstances. When we stop clinging to the past, whether it's through anger, grief, regret, or any other emotion, we free ourselves to experience life in the present moment. Letting go allows us to cultivate mindfulness, a state of awareness that enables us to experience life without the distortion of past hurts or future anxieties. It enables us to embrace impermanence, acknowledging that emotions, just like everything else, are transient and ever-changing. As we continue on the path of letting go, we begin to cultivate a deeper sense of compassion, not just for others, but also for ourselves. By releasing attachment to our negative emotions, we are free to experience life with a clearer, lighter heart. This process is transformative because it allows us to reconnect with the natural flow of life, where peace and contentment are not dependent on external circumstances but arise from within. Conclusion. The Buddhist philosophy behind letting go offers profound insight into how attachment to negative emotions can lead to suffering. Through the Four Noble Truths, we learn that attachment is at the root of our suffering, and that freedom comes from releasing that attachment. Letting go is not about erasing emotions or avoiding pain, but about acknowledging the impermanent nature of all things, and allowing ourselves to be free from emotional bondage. Through personal stories like Sarah's, we see that letting go is a process, one that requires mindfulness, compassion, and patience. By practicing non-attachment and embracing the transient nature of emotions, we can break free from the cycle of suffering and experience true liberation. The ripple effect. When we talk about the transformative power of rituals, it's easy to focus on the individual experience. However, the true depth of their impact lies in the way they ripple out. These rituals don't just influence the person performing them, but also everyone and everything around them. This is an essential principle in Buddhist philosophy. What we do, think, and feel affects not only our own lives, but the lives of others as well. The idea of interconnectedness, or interdependence, is central to understanding how change within one person can create a broader effect. This ripple effect is an integral part of how energy works, not only on a personal level, but across a larger, collective scale. How change affects others. In Buddhist teachings, the concept of interconnectedness, or pratitya samutpada, dependent origination, emphasizes that all things arise in dependence on conditions. Nothing exists in isolation. Every person, every action, and every event is interconnected. Changes within one individual can send ripples through the entire system of relationships, communities, and environments. When a person performs a ritual to release emotional baggage, especially one done with mindfulness and intention, it has the potential to affect much more than just their own emotional state. The energy shifted within the individual can flow outward and affect those around them, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, or even strangers. This is not a mystical or magical concept. It's a simple recognition of the fact that our emotional and mental states influence our actions. And those actions, in turn, influence the people we interact with. Consider how the mood of a single person can set the tone for an entire room. A person who is calm, centered, and radiates peaceful energy will often find that others around them adopt a similar state of mind. Similarly, when someone is holding on to unresolved anger or resentment, it can cause tension, discomfort, or negativity to spread throughout their relationships. This shows that our internal emotional landscape doesn't exist in a vacuum. It affects those we come into contact with, even if we aren't consciously aware of it. This ripple effect is particularly potent when someone actively engages in a ritual of emotional release or forgiveness. Imagine a person, burdened by years of pain, choosing to let go of that pain through a carefully executed ritual. As they release that emotional baggage, their energy shifts from one of heaviness to lightness. This shift doesn't just remain confined to their inner world, it begins to affect how they interact with others. Their relationships, once tense or strained due to unresolved emotions, may begin to soften. The people around them may feel a subtle change, perhaps in the form of increased kindness, patience, or understanding. For instance, a parent who has been carrying unresolved grief from a past loss might find that after performing a ritual to release that grief, they are more present and engaged with their children. A colleague who has been weighed down by resentment toward a boss may, after releasing that resentment, find themselves approaching work with a renewed sense of collaboration and openness. This is how change in one person's energy can ripple outward, affecting those they come into contact with, whether directly or indirectly. Buddhist teachings on interconnectedness. The idea that one individual's transformation can affect the collective ties directly into the Buddhist understanding of interdependence. In the Buddhist worldview, everything exists in a web of relationships, and the actions of one being influence all others. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are interconnected, and nothing exists independently of everything else. This concept helps us understand how a single act of emotional release, such as letting go of pain or forgiveness, can reverberate across the web of interconnected beings. Buddhism teaches that our actions, thoughts, and emotions create ripples in the world around us. These ripples are not isolated but interconnected with the ripples created by others. The more individuals who engage in practices of emotional healing, mindfulness, and compassion, the more collective healing can take place. As each person releases their emotional baggage, the shared energy in the world shifts toward a more peaceful and balanced state. This shift does not occur in isolation but as a collective movement toward healing and well-being. This is why the Buddhist practice of loving kindness, metta, and compassion, karuna, are so important. When we work on cultivating positive emotions and releasing negative ones, we contribute not only to our own well-being but to the well-being of the entire community. As each individual practices letting go of attachment, judgment, or resentment, the collective energy of the group becomes lighter, more compassionate, and more harmonious. In this way, the ritual we perform for ourselves, the ritual of letting go, releasing emotional baggage, and focusing on healing, becomes part of a larger spiritual ecosystem. Every shift in energy, every intentional act of healing, contributes to the global web of interconnectedness. Even if the changes we make are subtle, they are part of a broader movement that ripples outward and affects others, creating a positive shift in the collective consciousness. The role of intention in the ripple effect. The key to making these ripples truly transformative lies in the intention behind the ritual. In Buddhist philosophy, Intention is not just a passive thought but a powerful force that shapes the direction of our actions and our lives. When we perform a ritual with pure intention, whether it's letting go of past hurts, forgiving others, or releasing negative emotions, we are aligning ourselves with the deeper flow of the universe. This intentional act sends out energy that is imbued with our deepest desires for peace, healing, and balance. This energy, rooted in mindful intention, is what creates the ripple effect. By setting the intention to release pain, heal emotional wounds, and transform negative energy, we contribute to a greater flow of positive energy in the world. The more mindful we are in our intentions, the more powerful the ripple effect becomes. It is the conscious choice to engage in healing, both for ourselves and for others, that sets the energy into motion and allows it to reach beyond the individual. For example, when someone approaches a ritual with the clear intention to forgive and release resentment, they are not only healing themselves but also setting the stage for healing in their relationships with others. Their energy, now clear and balanced, allows them to engage with others from a place of peace rather than conflict. This can result in more harmonious interactions, better communication, and the possibility of repairing strained relationships. Conclusion: a call to action. Understanding the ripple effect of energy changes challenges us to recognize the impact our emotional state has on the world around us. The energy we carry within ourselves doesn't just stay locked inside, it flows outward, touching everyone and everything in our path. If we want to create a more peaceful, compassionate world, it begins with us. By performing rituals that promote healing, forgiveness, and emotional release, we begin to send out waves of positive change that ripple through our communities, relationships, and ultimately the world. So, I encourage you to try this ritual with an open heart. Take a moment to reflect on the emotional baggage you may be carrying and consider the ways in which it affects not only you but also those around you. When you let go of your pain and open yourself up to healing, you are not just freeing yourself, you are contributing to a collective transformation. Remember, the energy you release is not isolated, it ripples outward, touching lives, and inspiring others to do the same. Take the first step in your own healing journey, and watch how it can create a positive change that extends far beyond your own life. The beauty of this ritual is its simplicity, yet, its impact can be profound. When we release emotional baggage, we're not just healing ourselves, we're also sending healing energy into the world, creating a ripple effect that can touch everyone around us. This interconnectedness shows us something powerful. When one person heals, the world around them changes too. So, take a moment to let go of what weighs you down. As you do, know that you're contributing to a broader shift. One small act of healing at a time. The ripple effect begins with you.